American Dental Association, so you know you're being treated by the best. To find an ODA dentist in your area, visit oda.org.
The Flower Man here with our annual Valentine's Day tradition. A dozen roses for $12.99. That's incredible. A dozen roses, only $12.99. So beautiful. I'm starting to tear up. A dozen roses for Valentine's, only $12.99. Go to flowermanflowers.com. That's flowermanflowers.com.
Hey, let me tell you about the advantages of driving with my friends at Cordell Transportation. First of all, for the new year, they're offering brand new equipment to drive. They purchased new equipment, and not a lot of people could say that, but they've got it, and they're ready to roll with you. Cordell Transportation is offering an incredible $5,000 sign-on bonus paid over 18 months. If you're an experienced Class A CDL driver looking for excellent benefits, home daily dedicated lanes, no-touch freights, then apply today online at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
The Western Ohio Home Builders Association invites you to immerse yourself in a world of home improvement as experts gather to transform your ideas into reality at the Miami County Home and Garden Show, presented by 84 Lumber, February 16th through 18th at Hobart Arena in Troy. Discover the latest trends in all things home and garden. Our professional contractors and master gardeners are here to guide you through every step. Tickets are just $6. Visit MiamiCountyHomeshow.com for more details. And don't miss this ultimate home and garden experience.
All right, everybody, welcome in. It's the Kinner and Kev Show live here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Happy Tuesday. I'm Jocelyn Kinner. Kev Nash, well, today he's making his way back from Las Vegas. He'll be back with us later on in the week, so you're stuck with me at least for one more day just hanging out, you and I. A little one-on-one time. That ain't never hurt anybody, right? Got a big show lined up for you here today. We got a ton to get into. We'll have our top of the hour headlines here in just a moment. Adam Jardy with the Columbus Dispatch. We'll talk a little college basketball with him coming up around the corner. Chris Holtman, it looks like his time in Columbus potentially winding down, so we'll chat with him, with Adam Jardy, about the future of Ohio State basketball coming up around the corner. The Buckeyes have a big one tonight, 9 o'clock, the tip-off. They got a top 25 matchup going up against Wisconsin. They're a 9.5-point dog. It could be, I don't know. We're going to talk about that with Adam Jardy coming up here in just a little bit. We got a ton to dive into here today. As we talked about, we're going to take a look at the AFC North and talk about what is the number one offseason priority for each team in the North. For some teams, they have quite a few holes that they need to fill, but what is the number one discrepancy? What is the number one deficiency that each team in the AFC North has to patch up to be a Super Bowl contender in 2024? All right. It's the Kinner and Kev Show here on a Tuesday. Let's dive into it. Our top of the hour headlines. How about this one? Mike Zimmer was officially named the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. Now you're probably saying, "Hold up, Kinner, you did this last Friday." Last Friday there were reports. That the Cowboys were finalizing a deal. Okay, and they were finalizing a deal tonight, that Friday night, to make Zimmer the defensive coordinator, of course. And then all of a sudden, I never realized it never got done over the weekend, because what actually ended up happening over the weekend was Rex Ryan got involved. Rex Ryan had his camp kind of get involved, so the Cowboys were having additional conversations with him. Well, they just finalized the deal yesterday. So Zimmerman is now officially the defensive coordinator with the Dallas Cowboys moving forward. And as we talked about last week, a lot of times when you get these big name coordinators added to a staff with the coach that is consistently on the hot seat, the way that Mike McCarthy is, what's fascinating to me is that Zimmer could potentially be the Cowboys' next head coach if things don't go well in Dallas with Mike McCarthy, no doubt about it. But, of course, Zimmer, always a name that kind of rings bells with Cincinnati fans, of course. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Mike Zimmer over in Dallas, no doubt about it. How about this? I had a couple of really good friends. Some of my best friends went to the Waste Management over the weekend. And so they've had a lot of fun with this. The box score for the 2024 Waste Management Open, pretty impressive. All right, how about this? So in 2022, there were 0 arrests. There were 90 ejections, in Scottsdale by the Scottsdale Police Department for the waste management, open. 90 ejections, and they had 14 trespassers, right? Well, that number increased a little bit in 2023, but how about this year's waste management? There were 54 arrests. That's 54 more arrests than there were 2 years ago. There were 211 ejections. There were 73 trespassers. There were people who were, just consuming the alcohol at such a high level that they were passing out left and right. And now there's talks of they're going to have to really kind of clamp down a little bit on the alcohol consumption. I don't think the waste management needs to clamp down on it. I think that those who partake in the drinking festivities do. But the bottom line is there's no need to totally ban alcoholic beverages at this type of event. There are alcoholic beverages that are made available to everyone at a lot of major events, whether it's concerts, entertainment, sports, or whatever. Maybe just kind of tweak the availability to when these individuals can go and partake in this. But nonetheless, very interesting. I don't know how many of you have ever been out there for the waste management, but it's kind of, this was the one, tournament again that was kind of like separating itself from the rest, right? This was Live before Live was a thing. Live is more chaotic. It's more modern. It's more fun for the fan. That's kind of what waste management is, but wasted management is what they're going to have to call this one moving forward. All right, next up. Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson wants to know the team's plans at quarterback before committing to a long-term contract, according to Tom Pelissero. Now, Jefferson has said multiple times that he wants Kirk Cousins to stay in Minnesota. Well, what is interesting about that is the fact that Minnesota has basically let it be known that they want Kirk Cousins as well, but Kirk Cousins' camp wants $40 million a year. Don't blame him one bit. Statistically, top 5 numbers in football. I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League, but statistically, from yards per game, from completion percentage to touchdowns to all of that, very, very good. $40 million a year, though. Justin Jefferson has made it be known that he wants, a lot of moolah. He wants a lot of doll hairs. He wants to set the market. He wants to be the highest paid wide receiver in football. Well, if that ends up happening, the Vikings have let it be known that, hey, you want Kirk Cousins. You want to be the highest paid receiver in football. Kirk Cousins wants $40 million. The math ain't mathin'. We don't know if we can make that work. They've moved on from big names in recent years. They didn't keep Thielen, right? They go and they add a couple good receivers in the draft this past year, and Addison and guys like that. And it's like they're probably looking at Justin Jefferson saying, it's not that we don't want the number 1 wide receiver in football, but at the same time, do we really need to take $30 million a year and put it into one player when we need to kind of spread that out a bit? I'm fascinated by, and I'm not trying to turn this back onto the Bengals. I can't wait to see what happens with the Bengals. I can't wait to see what happens with the Vikings. I can't wait to see what happens with these teams who are Super Bowl contenders, or the Vikings aren't really as close to a Super Bowl championship as what the Bengals are, but the Vikings are a 10 times better team with Jefferson than with out, but that's something I don't, as wild as this sounds, because Justin Jefferson is a million times better at his position than what Kirk Cousins is at his. You got to go with Kirk Cousins. You still have Addison there. The Vikings still have firepower on the offensive side of the ball. The offensive firepower wasn't the problem for the Vikings this year. They were actually one of the hottest teams in football until Kirk Cousins went out with the injury. I'm really curious to see what the Vikings end up doing in this particular situation when it is all said and done. Speaking of the Bengals, we'll get into more of this coming up in a bit when we kind of span around the AFC North and we focus in on each team. What is the number 1 move that each team in the North has to make themselves Super Bowl contenders in 2024? Well, reports that floated around all day today, including ones from Mike Pelissero, of course, that the Bengals are leaning towards franchise tagging T. Higgins. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, and I don't want to get into it too heavy just because we've spent a lot of time on it, but that is interesting. Look, we knew the Bengals had options. Like, if they choose not to tag T. Higgins, I think they'll be just fine. All right, I think they'll be just fine. If they do bring him back, obviously now you have explosiveness all over that offense, and they'll be fine there too. I just think there's bigger ramifications if you bring T back. But I found that to be very, very interesting. That's the direction that they were leaning in nonetheless. All right, let's see what else is coming up on our top of the hour headlines at the end of the day. We got some bracketology to get to here around the corner. Joe Lenardi updated his bracketology report. But speaking of college basketball, we'll get deeper into this in just a little bit. But apparently, Kevin Sweeney, who covers college basketball Central on Twitter, And Ross Dellinger, I'm sorry, I put this tweet out. It was him responding to it, but college leaders tell Yahoo Sports that they have begun to explore serious changes to the NCAA tournament and college football playoff. In the wake of the Big Ten SEC joint venture, a deep dive is being talked about the college football, overhaul when you talk about finances and we talk about the expansion, obviously, but changes to the NCAA tournament could be coming as well. We just saw major changes, massive changes for the college football playoff format, going from 4 teams, not just doubling it, all right, not just tripling it, but quadrupling it, and that's a drastic change. Could we see a drastic change to the format of the NCAA tournament? Now, the NIT and the NCAA, there's really not a relationship there, but the NIT basically said, yeah, we're done giving these auto bids to these mid-major programs, right? Like, this is going to be a thing. We want the best teams that are left out of the tournament to be in our tournament. And now you have all these mid-major conferences on the outside looking in. There was at least that soft landing. Well, we have a great regular season. We win the regular season, but we have a bad night in that 1 week tournament that basically it all comes down to that. But at least we have the NIT to fall back on. That's no longer the case. That's a drastic change that was dropped on college basketball before the season started. I don't know how soon we could see potential changes to the NCAA tournament, but that is on the docket. It is being discussed, and they're not discussing it to see if they're going to do it. It's a matter of when they're going to do it. And I'm very fascinated by what we could potentially see from this as a fan of a mid-major basketball team that relies on having to win their conference tournament to get in, and what that means to that type of program. That would be devastating if those opportunities are taken away. And what would the future of college basketball look like as far as that's concerned? I don't know. I mean, wild nonetheless. Speaking of college football and the playoffs, ESPN and the college football playoff have reached a 6-year, $7.8 billion contract. How about that media deal? The college football playoff and ESPN have reached a 6-year, $7.8 billion media rights extension for the expanded playoffs. This is according to, of course, Andrew Marchand again with The Athletic. $7.8 billion. And of course, it's with the ESPN. So when you talk about that, of course, people right away, ESPN's going to have their thumbprint and all this on it. Be that as it may, okay? But I don't buy into those conspiracy theories. I really don't. I truly feel like the teams that have made the playoffs over the years were deserving of being in. And you could do the whole, well, Florida State this, Florida State that. Like, if you take emotions out of it and just simply look at the common sense tape in front of you, Florida State, it was right to put Alabama in over them. They were the better team. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. I know that a lot of people kind of disagree with that, but I don't really buy into the conspiracy theories that are out there, mainly because the majority of us are Ohio State football fans. Ohio State football has got the benefit of the doubt so many times when there was no overlap with ESPN. ESPN, everyone kept saying, SEC and ESPN were in bed together, even though ESPN just got the deal done with ESPN. ESPN had the deal done with the Big Ten. But no one was looking at it as, oh, man, it's the Big Ten. They're giving them, favoritism. No one ever looked at it like that. People said, oh, they're in bed because of the SEC network. That's why Georgia and Alabama are in every year. Heaven forbid we just use common sense and realize that Alabama and Georgia have been the 2 best programs over the last decade, right? Like, I mean, heaven forbid we just look at it from that perspective. Heaven forbid we look at it from the perspective of, for 4 straight years up until this past season where Michigan cheated to win the national championship, the SEC had won 4 straight national championships, 3 different teams with Georgia, Alabama, and, of course, LSU with that Joe Burrow-led year. So I don't believe in those conspiracy theories. I just don't. I don't go down that hallway. I refuse to let that creep into my mind because I enjoy the college football playoff race. I enjoy watching how the chaos unfolds week in and week out. So this is big. Again, a 6-year deal. This is not as big of a extension as what we saw originally. We had to wait 9 years for the original college football playoff contract for the 4 teams. This is a much shorter contract, and it does allow them some wiggle room to make some changes if need be. And when I say changes, I mean add more teams, because we all know whoever wins the championship in 2024-25 will end up playing 17 regular season games. Or 17 total games. I mean, that's a lot of games. Can't expand much more than that, but I didn't think that they would go from 4 to 12 to begin with. Pretty wild stuff. All right, next up, it's top of the hour headlines. Lots of reports. We talked about the T. Higgins move a little bit ago, or the report that the Bengals are leaning towards franchise tagging T for this upcoming season. How about the Pittsburgh Steelers? The Pittsburgh Steelers ending up, they move on from Mitch Trubisky. Okay, we kind of anticipated that they were going to kind of really take a deeper look at the quarterback room heading into 24-25, of course, and it started already. They moved on from Mitch Trubisky, but there is a former Buckeye quarterback that the Pittsburgh Steelers really have their eye on, and a lot of reports are floating around that the Steelers might be kicking the tires on making a trade to acquire this former Buckeye quarterback. How do you guys feel about this potential move for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Should the Steelers go after our guy Justin Fields? Would Justin Fields thrive in Pittsburgh? What say you? Let's talk about it when we come back. We'll use this to transition into our AFC North scope. We'll take a look around. What's the one major area of focus that each team in the AFC North needs to make to be a Super Bowl contender in 24? Let's talk about it when we come back. Justin Fields to the Steelers. T. Higgins being franchise tagged by the Cincinnati Bengals. What do the Ravens need to do? They technically were the best team in football this season, or at least were viewed that way. They had a bad night against the Kansas City Chiefs. What is their deficiencies? What about the Browns? The Browns overcame a ton. What moves do they need to make this offseason to remain a Super Bowl contender? We'll talk about all of that when we come back. It's the Kinner and Kev Show here on a Tuesday. We'll be right back.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
If you've been injured in an accident that wasn't your fault, we have legal professionals standing by to answer your questions. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-378-4750. So if you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, call now. Find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-378-4750 to speak with a live person now. Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
If you only have a 401k, you're not getting the most for retirement.
Wait, what?
Add a Robinhood IRA on top, then they'll boost it by 3%.
You can do that?
And if you transfer in any retirement account, you get 3% on top of that.
Is there a limit to the match?
No limit. Robinhood Gold gets you the biggest contribution match of any IRA on the market. Sign up for Robinhood Gold at Robinhood.com/boost by April 30th. Subscription fees apply.
Investing involves risk. 3% match requires gold for 1 year from first match. Must keep IRA for 5 years. Match on transfers subject to additional terms and conditions. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC.
Liberty Mutual presents How to Be the Life of the Party.
Okay, first turn the music off. Then ask for everyone's attention. Now, tell them that you customized your home insurance with Liberty Mutual and saved hundreds. Boom! Now everyone knows you're not just a pretty face. You have some brains inside that face that know how to save hundreds on home insurance. Woo!
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com. Based on recent survey of new customers who switched and saved. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.
Liberty, 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 liberty. Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Brakes? We can save you 15% on that. We have OE quality Duralast brake pads and rotors in stock, ready for pickup or delivery. We also have calipers, brake fluid, tools, and anything else you'll need to do the job right. When you get Duralast pads and rotors together, you'll save 15%. It's just part of what makes us America's #1 brakes destination.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Can't sleep with this cold.
Honey.
Honey?
Honey. You need NyQuil Severe Honey.
NyQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a dreamy honey taste.
Feeling better, honey? Honey? I'll take that as a yes.
Try NyQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu symptom relief. NyQuil Severe with honey flavor. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, fever. Honeylicious, best sleep with a cold medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
The venue's set. Families coming in from all over. It's our quinceañera. With all the excitement, it may be easy to overlook COVID-19. It's still a risk, and that's why it's muy importante to get this season's COVID-19 shot ahead of time. It helps protect against COVID-19, which can cause severe illness and hospitalization. So let's set the date, vaccinate, and celebrate. Learn about a vaccine option and book this season's updated COVID-19 shot today at schedulecovidvax.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're starting to speak another language, like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's BABBEL.com.
Why are people saying, "Phew, yeah," to Jackson Hewitt? Find out before it's too late. Hurry into Jackson Hewitt today.
All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Kev Nash out for a few more days. He's on his way back from Las Vegas from the Super Bowl. Off and rolling here on a Tuesday. Okay, so I followed up, taking a peek at what's kind of going on. By the way, we're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Head there now. Search the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. You can watch the show and interact with the show. When you leave your comments, we'll pull some of your comments into the show. Your little profile picture pops up. We'll interact with you that way. I see Shaw and Keith kind of going back and forth. I'm not sure where this started. Let me follow up on this. Oh, so Shaw continues to call it an invitational, not a playoff. And talk about the college football playoff. If you just missed it, it was like, about a $7 billion deal for a 6-year extension for the college football playoff on ESPN for the 12-team playoff. Okay. And Shaw's, upset that we call it a playoff. And he says, Shaw says, there is clear rules on how you make the NCAA tournament. The rules don't change every week, before the season even begins. I totally disagree with that. The NCAA tournament still doesn't make any damn sense as far as how it goes about putting it together. I mean, they hide behind just as many moving of the goalpost, talking points than the college football playoff does. The bottom line is the reason that the NCAA doesn't get criticized more than what they do is because there's so many teams that make it that the pool of upset teams, like no championship caliber team is getting screwed out of the NCAA tournament. This year, an undefeated Power 5 team got screwed out of the playoff, according to many. So that's why people are more passionate about it. People aren't like, what was it, 2 years ago, Dayton, I guess they were supposed to feel better about this when they came out and said, man, Dayton was, they were the last team. They were the first one out. Everyone, they were the last team that would have made it, whatever. And everyone was supposed to feel better about that. But we're like, but just how could you justify that? How do we know? Like, you're just giving us fluff. All the talking points for the NCAA tournament, it's all fluff. The strength of schedule, same thing college football uses. The net ranking. Okay, cool. You could say that we're going to use the net, but how do you come up with the net? The net doesn't make any sense either, because technically, if you think about it, how does the net work? Not, I'm going to use their net to use that as an argument. How do they come up with the net? Oh, they have these quad games. Well, what makes them quad 1 versus quad 4? Now, I know the answers to some of these, but not all. When the NCAA tournament, when the season starts, does everyone's net start at 0? You tell teams, okay, you need to schedule these quad 1 games. Well, we schedule teams schedule teams thinking that they're going to be quad games, and then they end up not being quad 1 because they end up being worse or injuries happen. So it's really, there is no clear-cut rules because there's nothing that makes sense about how any of this works. It's all fluid. It changes. So, Shaw, I disagree with that. if you want to say that the football playoff is an invitational because of that, but the NCAA tournament is not an invitational because the rules are clear cut, I totally disagree. The NCAA is just as confusing with the tournament for basketball as it is for the playoff. They give you enough talking points to justify every decision that they make, even though you could find enough talking points to argue every point that they make. Same thing with the playoff. But the reason that people aren't as passionate about the tournament is, like I said, no one's mad that the 69th team is not an NCAA champion. They're not winning the championship. They might be a potential Cinderella team. Okay, cool. But like that fan base doesn't feel like you robbed us of a championship. You just robbed us of a chance to play in a first four or go get our brains beat in by, the number 1 seed. With football, the team that misses it, the number 5 team, oh man, that team could have potentially won a national championship, right? That's why Florida State was so angry. Georgia should have been angry this year. Georgia was good enough to win. Now, not every year has been like that. I mean, it's been tough to find 4 quality teams to fill out a playoff, but nonetheless, or an invitational, as Shaw calls it. But either way, but yeah, Shaw, I disagree with that just from that standpoint. I don't think that the rules are clear cut for the NCAA tournament either. They just give you more talking points just to try to justify themselves. But I have more questions about the net than the protocol of how to make the tournament to begin with. But there you go. All right, so Kenner and Kev show here on 1410. ESPN Radio. Let's see what we got here. I need to throw something in the background just so that we could be talking over something here. So, here we go. So I threw this out a little bit ago. The AFC North coming up. So the Super Bowl, the season's done, right? And now the offseason begins. And now we're going to be talking, of course, a ton about the draft coming up and all this free agency and all of that. And now we just kind of sit and wait and let the chaos unfold. But as part of our top of the hour headlines, one story that caught my attention that I rolled over to this was that the multiple reports have floated around today that the Pittsburgh Steelers, after releasing Mitch Trubisky, that they are going to potentially pursue Justin Fields from the Chicago Bears. That the Bears right now have that number 1 overall pick. They're most likely going to draft Caleb Williams, that they do not need Justin Fields. So outside of needing him for, to acquire something in return trade-wise. But Justin Fields to Pittsburgh. Now, I've criticized Pittsburgh for years because I just think that, I think that Mike Tomlin is a leader of men, but I actually find him to be kind of selfish because he's more obsessed with the title of, I've never had a losing season. He's more obsessed with that than sacrificing a losing season to maybe better position yourself to be more successful. Now, keep in mind, it's not just about losing to get higher draft picks. Sometimes it's about, okay, we're running in place with these particular guys. Maybe if we traded away these guys as a money dump and we can free up some cap space, we can go get better talented players to help even out the roster. But it's not always about tanking to get better draft picks, but sometimes they go hand in hand. So Pittsburgh's obsession with Mike Tomlin's record versus winning Super Bowls, I view that differently. Everyone views that as he's a leader of men. I view him to be selfish because he's more obsessed with that than putting his team in a position to win a damn Super Bowl. So if they're going to be aggressive and going to go get a quarterback this offseason, you have, Mitch Trubisky, who they just released, right? But you have Mason Rudolph, and then, of course, you have Kenny Pickett. Mason Rudolph's not leading you anywhere. We've done that whole song and dance now for quite a few years now, and the most known that he ever was the back and forth he had with Myles Garrett because he knew how to take a helmet to the head. That's the only reason we know who Mason Rudolph is, right? Kenny Pickett, Pittsburgh was hoping that the hometown kid who, the ties that played at Pitts, would have been a hometown hero, all these things, really wanted it to work. We've seen enough to know. That's the thing about the NFL now. This idea that, if you just send him to somewhere else, he'll be a superstar quarterback. Like that's never been seen before. People want to use Baker Mayfield and say, well, look at Baker. Look at him. He's thriving now. He did well in Cleveland. The clock just ran out. The injuries caught up with him. And it wasn't just on Baker. You had full position groups who were out and injured. That was during the COVID era. You can say it's excuses all you want, but the reality is there was a lot of chaos in Cleveland during Baker's time there. Baker didn't all of a sudden, he didn't go from being horrible to all of a sudden, look, he's about to get a $40 million. That's how Baker looked in Cleveland when he was healthy. That's the Baker that led Cleveland to the damn playoffs. That's the Baker that actually won a playoff game. Baker's won a playoff game in Cleveland since the Steelers have last won a playoff game. So Baker wasn't a nobody and became something in Tampa. He was a somebody in Cleveland. Injuries derailed him. All right. Chaos around him in Cleveland derailed him. And then once he got some stability, boom, he kind of looks like he used to in Cleveland for that bit. So I'm not going to use him as an example. Kenny Pickett, Stop using offensive coordinators. And, oh, man, Kenny Pickett, he gets the right OC. He could be Joe Burrow. Give me a break. Kenny Pickett ain't it. Mason Rudolph ain't it. And I'm also here to tell you, Justin Fields, he ain't it either. If he didn't play at Ohio State, let's say that he's stuck at Georgia. Let's say that he stayed at Georgia. And then he had a great college career at Georgia. Let's say he won a national championship at Georgia. And then Justin Fields goes to the Bears as a Georgia quarterback and had the same start to his Bears career as he has up to this point. We would not be giving him that benefit of the doubt. We want Justin Fields to work out because we're Buckeye fans. We want Justin Fields to work out because we were a huge fan of his for a couple years when he was with the Buckeyes, right? Leading him to a national championship game, Heisman contender for a few years. We want that to work out so bad. But you got to take your Buckeye blinders off. Justin Fields is not going to work in Pittsburgh. And you can ask yourself, how much better is he than Kenny Pickett? Is he better than Kenny Pickett? There are elements to Justin Fields' game that I like way more than Kenny Pickett's. From time to time, he could throw good football. But from time to time, he throws a lot of footballs to the other team. Well, that's because in Chicago, he didn't have what? Joe Burrow didn't have an offensive line, led him to a Super Bowl. What? Joe Flacco didn't have a run game, didn't have an offensive line, led him, for what? Got him to the playoffs after their season was starting to unravel. There's excuses galore for every quarterback that is out there. The good ones find a way. Justin Fields is just one big bag of excuses. I'm not saying he can't be a good backup quarterback, but if you think that you're going to bring Justin Fields to Pittsburgh and all of a sudden the missing link to Pittsburgh Steelers football to equal out the playing field with Lamar Jackson, two-time MVP in Baltimore, Joe Burrow, who, if he could stay healthy, is a future MVP and going to win the Super Bowl if he could stay healthy. The Cleveland Browns as a whole, Deshaun, I know what the potential is with him, but regardless, Deshaun not living up to expectations between the run game and the offensive line and the defense. I mean, come on, Pittsburgh. I get it. You made the playoffs. You're winning games, all this stuff, but it's about winning games and progressing to the point to where you're good enough to win a Super Bowl. Is Justin Fields going to be that missing link? Or is maybe unloading on some star players, losing a few games, freeing up some cap space, bringing in some stars and shaking things up a bit? Maybe you should do that. The Houston Texans have lapped the Steelers twice. The Texans started a rebuild when the Steelers last won their last playoff game. Then they won a couple playoff games with Deshaun. And then they tanked again, and now they got C.J. Stroud. They won a playoff game this year. The Texans have gone through multiple rebuilds and multiple playoff wins with multiple quarterbacks since Pittsburgh last did it. Maybe doing the same thing over and over again isn't going to work. Justin Fields is not the solution in Pittsburgh. Is he more interesting than Kenny Pickett? Possibly. Is he better than Mason Rudolph? I would take Fields over Rudolph, but at the same time, if those are your options, you're just asking which one's going to be good enough to keep your head above water. But go get someone that's going to help you win. You have two really good receivers. You have a good running back. You have TJ Watt. If the roster was in Cleveland and Cleveland kept, fumbling the quarterback situation, and some of you say that they have, but they've been able to overcome that. They're at least getting to the playoffs consistently. They're at least, doing that. Pittsburgh, just running them in place. You're wasting TJ Watt. You're wasting all of this. You're wasting your receivers. You figure it out. But Justin Fields ain't it. I'm sorry. I don't know about you guys, but that ain't it. So, AFC North. What's that one move that every team needs to make this offseason to make them a Super Bowl contender in 2024 heading into 25? Okay, let's start with the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, the easy one for the Ravens, okay? Obviously, the easy thing for the Ravens, to me, obviously you got to keep adding at wide receiver, but just get healthy. Mark Andrews, stay healthy. J.K. Dobbins, whoever the running back is going to be next year, stay healthy. Health is key for the Ravens, but obviously some stability at wide receiver. But at the same time, continuously bailing out Lamar Jackson every offseason when criticism is thrown his way of saying he has continuously not had help. Did you see the receiving core that Patrick Mahomes just won a Super Bowl with? Yeah, well, he has Travis Kelce. Lamar has Mark Andrews. Yeah, but, Patrick Mahomes has the number 2 defense in the NFL. The Ravens have the 4th. Maybe, just maybe, all the people who criticize Lamar were right. And maybe, just maybe, all the people who love Lamar are semi-right because he's still a very good quarterback. He's just not as good as those guys. The Ravens are an interesting team. The Ravens and Steelers will continue to run in place. That's just kind of where we're at. As far as the Steelers are concerned, they need to go out and improve at quarterback and improve at quarterback in a drastic way. If the Steelers are going to be aggressive and move on from Kenny Pickett, go pursue Russell Wilson. There's still some in the tank for Russell Wilson. We saw it last year. Denver just had so many other issues, and of course the conflict between him and his head coach. I think Russell Wilson in Cleveland makes a hell of a lot more sense than Justin Fields, as far as that's concerned. But yes, they are a quarterback away. They are a very, very good quarterback away from being Super Bowl contenders. Right now, they're a wild card contender, and that's about it. They're not even a win in the playoff contender. They are just a wild card contender to get there. As far as the Cleveland Browns are concerned, health, number one, but that's not how this game works. Obviously, wide receiver. They have to hit on a wide receiver. They have to get somebody that can complement Amari Cooper, especially when you look around the league. Like, obviously, they're good enough. I mean, I just talked about the Steelers or the Chiefs. No wide receivers, but they have Travis Kelce. The Browns have Amari Cooper and, David Njoku. But with the flow of that offense, obviously health needs to be key so that Nick Chubb can come back. But they need a number 2 wide receiver to complement Amari Cooper. And then they would have as deep of, playmaking unit as anyone in the NFL. The Bengals are losing Boyd. They don't have a tight end. They don't have a run game. If they franchise T, they're going to have T and they're going to have Jamar Chase, right? But if the Browns can get a true number 2 wide receiver in there with Amari Cooper, now you have 2 really good wide receivers, an elite tight end, and an elite offensive line, and Nick Chubb. Now you're ahead of the Cincinnati Bengals as far as I'm concerned. They have to get that number 2 wide receiver right, though. If they get a true number 2 wide receiver, I'll take their weapons over the Bengals' weapons any day of the week. That's not hating. That's just the reality of it. The Bengals have T and Jamar. That's it. They lost Boyd, right? They don't have a tight end. Their O-line's okay. They don't have a run game, second worst run game in football. So to me, go add an additional weapon, and the Browns will be just fine. And of course, Deshaun, stay healthy for the love of, whatever. Who knows what's going to happen with the Joe Flacco situation? I don't think he's coming back to Cleveland. He should go somewhere and start. And then the Cincinnati Bengals, they have so many holes to fill. That's why this idea that you're getting Joe Burrow away, back away from being a Super Bowl contender, not with that defense, not with that run game, but obviously they're going to improve the run game. I think the run game is the easiest to fix. They can get 2 good backs. I mean, they have Brown right now. I think they need to go get a veteran back to complement one another. They have to make that. But I think tight end, look, the key to success in the NFL right now is tight end. Defensively, I think they have some good weapons on defense. I'm not really sure what went wrong with Cincinnati this year defensively. They had the same cast of characters as they had the last couple of years. Not really sure why that has not been working. But, man, make a couple adjustments there. You have guys that can lead your defense for you. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of one of those things where they have to go tight end. If you look at the NFL right now, look at the best teams in the Bills with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, elite tight end. The team that just won a Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes, an elite tight end. The Browns, Deshaun Watson, elite tight end, and David Njoku. Keep going down the list. There's a reason that Schultz wants to go back to the Texans. Is he as elite as those others? No, but still very, very good production from your tight end. CJ Stroud loves to throw to his tight end. It's all you have to have the tight end. You have to have a tight end in today's NFL. All the contenders, all of them, tight end. The team that just lost the Super Bowl, tight end. Right? The Ravens, tight end with Mark Andrews. You have to have a tight end. You have to have a tight end. But there you go. All right, so Kenner and Kev show here on 1410 ESPN Radio. A lot of stuff coming in. Let's see. I don't think Justin Smith, who's a Steelers fan, liked the idea of Russell Wilson. If you can, what about Justin Fields makes you more confident than Russell Wilson at this point? Like, put the Buckeye fandom away and just look at Justin Fields. What has he done? Russell Wilson, hell no. Justin Fields is better than Russell Wilson right now. Based on what? Based on what? Like, I know the Broncos didn't do well last year, but go look at Russell Wilson's numbers. They were not bad. And if you want to look at bad, you want to sit there and say, look at the numbers of Russell. Look at the numbers of Justin Fields. Yeah, but Justin Fields didn't have this. There's a lot of quarterbacks that have to overcome a lot. Lamar's won 2 MVPs with no wide receivers. Patrick Mahomes has won 2 of his 3 Super Bowls with no wide receivers. Joe Burrow got to a Super Bowl with no offensive line. Spare me the boo-hoo. Justin Fields didn't have this in Chicago. If the dude was elite, he would have found a way to do a lot better than what he did. I mean, he averaged under 200 yards a game. Passing yards. I mean, and he was supposed to be a big playmaker with his legs. He couldn't even do that this past season at an elite level like we saw from Lamar and others. I'm not big on Justin Fields. Actually, I'm so big on Justin Fields being bad that's, I guess maybe I should want him in Pittsburgh. I hope it does. I hope it happens. Justin Fields to Pittsburgh. As a Browns fan, I sign off on that. Bengals fans, we don't agree on much. Can we all agree that Justin Fields in Pittsburgh is just A-okay? That's totally fine by all of our perspective as far as I'm concerned. We'll be right back. It's the Kinner and Kev Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks VapoStick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower for steamy Vicks vapors. Use as directed. VapoStick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower use for adults only.
Did you know gas goes bad in as little as 30 days? Bad gas can cause rough starts, poor performance, or no starts at all. Stable, America's #1 fuel stabilizer, ensures quick and easy starts after storage. Stable's proprietary formula keeps fuel fresh for 2 years, outperforming competitors. Whether it's your car, truck, boat, lawnmower, leaf blower, weed trimmer, ATV, motorcycle, or anything else with an engine, when you store, start with Stable.
And now, Public Education Matters with Ohio Education Association President Scott Tomorrow.
Black History Month is a time to celebrate many Americans who have shaped our country, but we have to do more. We must create a future where all students have the resources and supports they need to succeed, no exceptions. Our students deserve an honest education, and we must use our united voice to make a better tomorrow for everyone.
Public Education Matters, brought to you by the Ohio Education Association.
Hungry for a great time? Maybe some great food? Then come on down to your neighborhood Submarine House. Try our oven-toasted deli subs, our mouth-watering salads, pizzas, appetizers, and more. And wash them down with a unique selection of craft beers while watching the big game on our big screens. With locations around Dayton, in Columbus, and our newest sports bar in Kettering, you're never far from a Submarine House. Subs, sports, spirits. Submarine House.
Jeeps, trucks, side-by-sides, and more. Don't miss the 10th Annual Dayton Off-Road Expo, February 24th, 9 to 6 p.m., February 25th, 10 to 4 p.m. at the Roberts Center in Wilmington, Ohio. Show rigs, off-road vendors, and more. Admission is only $10 per adult. Kids 12 and under are free. Presented by Muddy Buddies Jeep Wrangler Club and sponsored by Wilmington Auto Center. Don't miss the Dayton Off-Road Expo, your ultimate destination for all things off-road.
Did you know Carroll Works Tire isn't just for tires? We're also one of the leading service centers in the area. Our knowledgeable staff focuses on honesty, allowing you to make informed decisions. If you need routine maintenance or necessary repairs, contact us at Carroll Works Tire. Pothole season is here. Sometimes they are unavoidable, like the big hit on the last play. Yearly alignment checks will identify worn or loose steering and suspension components that may be robbing you of tire life and fuel economy. Contact us at Carroll Works Tire.
After years of discomfort, it's like I'm alive again.
Sonia Hackett talks about how QC Kinetics changed her life.
QC Kinetics has given me my quality of life back.
Before QC Kinetics, Sonia suffered from horrible knee and back pain stemming from a car accident.
I was wearing knee braces just to try to maneuver around.
Sonia hated the idea of pain meds, and surgery seemed too risky. So she turned to the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics, the leaders in advanced regenerative medicine.
That consultation just changed my life. I can do the treadmill, everything. I don't have anything holding me back. The quality of life is pain-free. QC Kinetics has made us very happy.
Call QC Kinetics for your free consultation today.
I'm going to get emotional again. They are like family members to me. They care.
Call QC Kinetics now.
Call QC Kinetics 937-936-0325. That's 937-936-0325. 937-936-0325.
9 out of 10 hiring managers are having difficulty hiring today. Robert Half is here to help. At Robert Half, they know talent. Visit roberthalf.com today.
All right, and we are back. It's the Kinder and Kev show here on Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM. All right, we still have plenty to get into. How about some college basketball action tonight? Dayton Flyers, they have Duquesne. Dayton coming off that embarrassing loss against VCU. Now you probably say, how is a loss against a rival in A10 play? How is that embarrassing? Well, when you put 47 points up, that's pretty damn embarrassing if you ask me. But besides the point, they have a chance to redeem themselves because it's the A10 and you don't have challenging opponents every single night. So now they're going to have a chance to kind of ride the ship a little bit tonight against Duquesne. They are 8.5-point favorites. They should take care of business easily against Duquesne. We'll see what ends up happening coming up later on tonight. Some top 20, a lot of good top 25 matchups around college basketball. Duquesne at Dayton. Dayton moved up 2 spots despite a loss against VCU, only putting up 47 points in that. Dayton 19-4 in the season. They're an 8.5-point favorite at home with Duquesne coming. Duquesne 14-9, 4-6 in A10 play. The total, what is over under 134.5? I mean, my God, I'd say take the under. Woo. Dayton's setting offense back quite a few decades with that, No, that Dayton's going to do well tonight because they played so poorly. That's just how that works. They're going to come out angry. They're going to come out feeding off the fans tonight. That's why, look, UD Arena is their safe haven. They're going to be just fine returning home coming up here later on tonight. Big Ten basketball. We'll have Ohio State basketball coming up at 9 o'clock tonight. 8:15 pregame coverage begins. Ohio State on the road taking on number 20 Wisconsin. Wisconsin, a 9.5-point favorite. We're going to talk about the Buckeyes' future on the hardwood with Adam Jardy with the Columbus Dispatch coming up here around the corner as far as that's concerned. All right, so Doug Toby says Texas Tech 79, Kansas 50. So I've had some people send that to me about the fact that, how come I'm not railing on Kansas? Well, it's a local show. I'm giving my opinion on the local teams. What would, but since you asked, 50 is embarrassing for any team out there. Texas Tech is not that good of a defensive team for Kansas to score 50. But dropping 50 against a good Texas Tech team, while dropping 47 against, let's not act like you keep everyone's acting like everyone's starting a race from the same starting blocks. That's not the case here. Poor Dayton has to play in the Week A10 while Kansas is having to actually play real teams. Look, Kansas, we know, is one of the real teams in the country. Dayton can't figure it out. At times they look like it, but oofa. Kansas, though, Kentucky, a lot of these teams, they've been losing a lot, and Dayton's taking advantage of that. That's why they keep moving up. But you're not going to get bailed out too many times losing a game in A10 play and moving up in the rankings. There's a reason that even the most homerist of Flyer fans that I know weren't even surprised by that. As far as that's concerned. But nonetheless, bracketology. So Joe Lenardi updated his bracketology today. If the first 4, if this was the final bracket that was released on Selection Sunday, the first 4 in Dayton at the University of Dayton Arena would feature the 16 seeds. Of course, Southern going up against Eastern Kentucky, and then Merrimack against NC Central. Don't expect you to know many of those teams. Merrimack had a lot of really good players last year. They weren't eligible for the tournament, so a lot of those players bailed. They went elsewhere. Youngstown has a few of those players nonetheless. But yeah, Merrimack had a lot of really good players last year. They just weren't eligible. But the 11 seed, so Cincinnati was a part of this. But they've been kind of bumped out. New Mexico and Ole Miss would be the 2-11 seed matchups, and then Nevada and Utah. Ole Miss, when we talk with Adam Jardy coming up around the corner, it will be interesting. Ole Miss, they're led by Chris Beard. I think that is a interesting target for the Buckeyes when it comes, when the offseason approaches, when they do move on from Chris Holtmann, if they do. And I think that they will. But Chris Beard makes a ton of sense. They have a new, obviously, with Bjork, the new athletic director at Ohio State. He's a super aggressive guy. I could see them going all in. Now, that's if they prioritize basketball. We're going to learn a lot about who Ohio State is as an athletics department because we're going to find out if they truly value basketball. If they just hire some young up-and-coming coach that they don't have to pay a ton of money to, and they want to limit expectation, you hire Chris Beard, Ohio State's expected to be a top 15 team right away and contend right away. And Chris Beard, the reason that would be the case is Beard has won absolutely everywhere that he has gone. Takes over Ole Miss, winning right away. Obviously, would still be at Texas if he didn't have the, the distraction, if you will, off the floor. He was not found guilty of anything, but of course, schools have to cut ties with you right away. Some teams might shy away from the PR nightmare, but I do believe that because he's at Ole Miss already, Ole Miss absorbed all of that PR nightmare. He was not coaching. You hired him out of nowhere. He wasn't coaching. Why? Ole Miss absorbed all of that. Ohio State would be hiring Chris Beard, Ole Miss's coach. So we'll see. Another name to keep an eye out for, again, Buzz over at Texas A&M. I could see him coming to Ohio State as well, just because he was there when Bjork was in Columbus. Or was when he was at Texas A&M, I'm sorry. So, yeah, not the sexiest first four field nonetheless, but again, there's still so much to shake out between now and then. As far as the Dayton Flyers are concerned, they moved up in the rankings, of course, after that loss, but that loss did not impact them at all. They stayed the same. Joe Lunardi has them as a 4 seed, and according to Joe Lunardi, going up against Akron in the first round. All bracketology, updated bracketology from Joe Lunardi. That's what I'm just passing on to you. The 1 seeds, Purdue and UConn, Houston, and Arizona. Those would be your 4 1 seeds if Joe Lunardi's bracket holds up, which, of course, they never do. But, I mean, they're all within the same. It's all within the ballpark. It gives you an idea. Dayton's going to be floating in that 4 to 5 range. I think that, they've lost 2 of their last. Well, I think they're 3-2 in their last 5. If they won both those games that they lost, I think we're talking about a potential of a 3 seed. I mean, they really could. Dayton could have continued moving up. I think the 4 is the ceiling. And I say that because I'm not confident that they're going to win out. I'm not confident that they're even going to win the A-10 tournament because history says so. But I'm not saying that they're not a good team. I'm just saying I just don't see them winning out. They still have some tough games on the road coming up, and they still have some return games that they have to follow up as well. They still got VCU again. I'm not saying they're going to lose that one, but we'll be keeping an eye on that, no doubt about it. But that's Joe Lunardi's latest updated bracketology. What's coming up for Dayton? Duquesne tonight and Fordham. No excuse not to come away with 2 of those. You got to go play at George Mason. Davidson's at home. Davidson's not the same Davidson team from years past. I mean, that program's not rolling right now, obviously. Loyola's the interesting one. You got to play at Loyola, at St. Louis, VCU. That final 3-game stretch is very interesting to me. St. Louis, at St. Louis, never an easy place to play, right? But at Loyola, they're kind of quietly just hanging out right there, in the mix of the top of the A-10. I find Loyola very interesting. I remember when Loyola was added to the A-10 a few years ago, a lot of people were not feeling it. A lot of people weren't very high on the addition of Loyola. I liked it. I mean, it's a team that was fresh out of a Final Four national championship appearance, all that stuff. I like the addition of Loyola, and right now making an immediate impact, battling right there at the top. I mean, they are 9-2 in A-10 play. They're 17-7. Dayton's 19-4. Both teams 9-2 in A-10 play. Okay, I like Dayton I like Loyola a lot out of the A-10. They're not better than Dayton. They shouldn't be. I mean, Loyola's not ranked. They don't have a number in front of their name, right? Now, that's very simplistic. I get that. But when you look, St. Louis, not good, right? They're not a good basketball team, but you got to go play at St. Louis, and I think that could potentially, that has all the makings of a trap game. You're going to have an emotional game after these 2 home games coming up. You got to go play at Loyola. I think when you look at that St. Louis game, that's the trap game. That's the trap game because you're looking ahead to that finale against VCU at home. All right. You got that, you have VCU at home to close out the regular season. And right now with things being so tight, that second loss obviously gives Richmond the opportunity to win the league. If things don't go well for Dayton down the stretch, they don't play Richmond again. Now, I haven't looked at Richmond's schedule, so I'll take a look at that coming up in a bit. But as far as what Dayton has coming up, They should win tonight. They should beat Fordham. They should beat George Mason. They should beat Davidson. They should go on a little 4-game run right here. But those final 3, I'm keeping an eye on that final 3 for Dayton. At Loyola, at St. Louis, VCU. Now, St. Louis doesn't intimidate me if I'm a Dayton fan, right? But having to go, we've seen Dayton plays their worst games on the road. Most teams play their worst game on the road, right? But Dayton is, with them they're not good on the road. St. Louis is a trap game. You're going to come off an emotional game against Loyola, 2 of the top teams in the league going head-to-head here in a few weeks on March 1st. And then you got VCU coming up, the return game. You're going to have VCU on their home floor to close out, and that could potentially be for the league depending on what happens with Richmond over the next couple of weeks. So interesting race to the finish line, no doubt about it, for your Dayton Flyers. So there you go. Ohio State basketball in action tonight. They're on the road. They are at number 21, Wisconsin, and we're going to talk about that with Adam Jardy with the Columbus Dispatch. He covers your Ohio State Buckeyes, of course, so he'll join us coming up here when we come back. It's the Kinder and Kev Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash.
Justin, you're awesome, baby.
Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The patented key ingredient is something called Testofen, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text KETTLE to 321-321 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text KETTLE to 321-321. That's KETTLE to 321-321.
Are you stressing about your IRS tax problems? Have you received notices from the IRS threatening to garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, or seize your property? You need an ally. Allies Tax Relief has tax attorneys and enrolled agents that are ready to fight for you. They have saved millions for taxpayers just like you. Allies Tax Relief can help put a stop to IRS collections and, most importantly, negotiate your tax debt. Here's Brenda, a happy client of Allies Tax Relief.
I owed the IRS around $57,000, and they're about to start garnishing my paychecks. I heard a commercial on the radio about Allies Tax Relief, so I thought I'd give them a call. After a day, they were able to at least stop the garnishments, and after a few months of negotiations, I walked away owing the IRS only $301.
If you owe the IRS, call Allies Tax Relief right now for your free consultation. Call 800-805-1723. 800-805-1723. That's 800-805-1723.
Race to savings on your next project at Menards. Blue Def Diesel Exhaust Fluid is engineered to help all SCR system diesel vehicles reduce emissions and improve fuel economy. It's colorless, odorless, and non-toxic, and can save you money on costly repairs. Get a 2.5-gallon jug today and save $4 after rebate now at Menards. Good through February 18th. Savings are a mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
Tax season is here, and I'm sure you're thinking about who is going to do my taxes. Try my friends at Arrowhead Tax Service in New Carlisle. Call Michael and Justin today at 937-543-5770. They're ready to serve you at 113 West Jefferson Street in New Carlisle. Arrowhead Tax Service gives back to the community through athletics and nonprofits, and all new clients save 10% off. Online at arrowheadtaxservice.com, where their target is your satisfaction.
Save $104 on select sets of Ford Nokian tires now through February 17th. Only at AAA Tire and Auto Service. Details at AAA.com/mycar.
Coming to you live from the Superbook Sports Studios in Kettering. You're listening to Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
All right, and we are back. It's the Kinner and Kev show. No Kev Nash. He's on his way back from Vegas, of course. So you're stuck with me for the week, or at least a few more days. He should be back here by Thursday. That's if he decides that coming back to this place is even worth it after all the fun he had in Vegas, of course. But nonetheless, a lot to get into when Kev returns, of course. But we'll keep on trucking along. The NFL season is officially over, but of course we know that the talking points don't stop, and there's plenty of off-season stuff to get us. I mean, it's draft season almost, basically, right? Like all the draft talk, the free agency talk, the schedule reveals, all that fun stuff. I mean, and then, the Reds are good, so we have plenty of baseball to talk about. College basketball, March Madness around the corner, and I tell you what, the team that I was hoping would be talking about when it comes to March Madness at this time of year, that's not going to be the case. Ohio State 4-9 in Big Ten play, 7 games back in the conference. They're 14-10 overall, and in typical Buckeye fashion, the wheels just coming off in the month of January. What's what? Like, I've never seen something like this. It's, Ohio State led by Chris Holtmann. They beat really good teams in November, December. It's not like Chris Holtmann and the Buckeyes hide in November, December. They're beating good teams every year in November, December, to the point to where I always feel really good about them. And then comes the Big Ten, and we know how good the Big Ten is, but the Big Ten is not so good that it overshadows the type of teams that they beat in November and December. And I feel like we have the same conversation every year around this time with our next guest. Adam Jardy with the Columbus Dispatch covers your Ohio State Buckeyes. Adam, we appreciate your time. Welcome in, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to talk to you again.
I thought about, I was like, do I text Adam today and have him come on, or do I just go back to last year's interview we had at this time? I feel like outside of the Bronny talk, we could have had the same interview, or we are going to have the same interview as last year, except it does feel like, is the seat for Chris Holtmann at a boiling point right now? Is it the hottest it's ever been, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly hotter than it's ever been, because I don't think it's been hot until this season. I mean, I know last year was a difficult year, to put it mildly, but there was no real job security pressure at that point, nor has there really been at any point until you get to this point this year, where I do think, there are people that are certainly questioning, where this is headed and, what the upside looks like. So yeah, it's as warm as it's ever been, but that's partially because I don't think it was ever warm until this year.
Yeah, and with that, obviously, I talked about this already. You heard the open, but like, it's not as if they hide in November, December. It's not like they're not playing good teams in November and December. In fact, that's why so many people feel good about them heading into January every year, is because of the work that they put in the non-conference run. Adam, what is it about? I mean, I know the Big Ten's good, but it's not so good to the point where there should be this mass discrepancy from how they look in November, December into January. Is it just a cloud, I think, that becomes a mental thing that hangs over this team? What is it that changes come January, do you think?
Well, I mean, part of it is that it actually isn't an every year thing. Like, certainly the last 2 years, January has been really poor. And then 2020, 21, they had a really rough, or maybe it was 1920, excuse me. But in that year, Kyle Young had his appendix taken out like right before New Year's, and that team struggled without him. And so they went on a losing streak in January, trying to figure out how to play without him. And so that was that year. And then these last 2 years, I mean, it's, you walk the fine line between excuse and reason. Youngest team in the Big Ten last year, youngest team in the Big Ten again this year. And in an era where college basketball is older than it's ever been, and teams have 5th, 6th-year guys on the roster who are grown men, it's really hard to win with freshmen and sophomores who aren't 5-star, recruits. And so I think that's what it is more than anything, is just the 1 year Kyle Young got hurt, and that was a critical injury for the team. And then these last 2 years, they've just been really young, and it's been hard for them to try to figure it out.
And some people bring up too, you look at guys like, Michi Johnson, some others that have left to go on and be really good players elsewhere. I know players come and go. It's the nature of college athletics in today's landscape. But, seen some articles come out, kind of questioning that too. It's like, okay, Holtmann recruits really well. They get really good players to come in. But you look at the talent that's leaving and the kind of seasons that they're having, it almost sours the pain of the losses in January heading into February even more.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, like, you look at the roster as it's constructed right now, and you say, like, would you like to have Michi Johnson on this roster the way he's played this year for South Carolina? And the answer is obviously yes. I mean, he's having a really fun season on a really exciting team. So there's that. But, like, Michi, he didn't quite live up to expectations at Ohio State, and I think they would have liked to have him hang around, but I think he was looking for a little bit more of a role than they were willing to promise him, and so he finds another place, and that's the benefit of the transfer portal. That's like the best thing about this new era is that if you don't feel like you have the right path in front of you, you can go find another alternative, and it's certainly worked out for Michi. But I don't know. I look at some of the other guys that have transferred out, and I don't feel like Ohio State really misses too many of them. I think maybe when Micah Potter left and went to Wisconsin, that was certainly a talented guy that they could have used, but I don't think they've been particularly hamstrung by losing talented guys to the portal. I just think these last 2 years they've been really young, and they haven't been able to coach their way out of that, and the players haven't been able to find a way to play their way out of it.
Everyone has an opinion on this. Obviously, I do. And by the way, I'm a huge Chris Holtmann fan. I've said almost to a fault, to the point to where I'm a very critical person of all college basketball teams, but I turn a blind eye to Chris Holtmann in Ohio State. I'm not as critical of them as I am others, and people call me out for that all the time. So I'm pro Chris Holtmann in this situation, with the understanding of, things need to change, because it's understandable why so many people want him out. But regardless of my opinion, your opinion, or the listener's opinion, Adam, the only opinion that matters is the people up top. And with a new athletic director coming in, we've seen how aggressive Ohio State all of a sudden just flipped that switch from NIL and everything else with football. I mean, it's just like they were an animal this offseason after suffering so much. Third straight loss to Michigan, of course, losing in the bowl game. It was like enough is enough, and they flipped a switch. Do you anticipate something like that happening with the basketball program, or is this going to be a reset? What do you get vibe-wise from the athletic director and the powers that be who control the fate of Chris Holtmann?
Well, if you're asking what I think the NIL allotment will look like and what sort of approach they could have in the offseason as far as assessing the roster and building it, my understanding is that what you saw with football this offseason is the plan for basketball. So it's not going to be a case of, Ohio State can't get this player or that player because of an NIL situation. They have the funds at the ready to bolster this roster however they feel it's needed. And so really the question comes down to, in these last 7 Big Ten games plus whatever postseason you end up getting, how much progress can you show? Because Gene Smith and Chris Holtmann made a plan a couple of years ago where they said, we're going to build through youth. We're going to build a more traditional way, and we're going to sort of supplement the roster with the transfer portal along the way. But we're going to build with this freshman class and the next freshman class, and we're going to get young. Then those guys are going to grow together, mature together, and we're going to build a sustainable winner that way. So the question then becomes, how much progress do you need to see this year to say, okay, a third year of Bruce Thornton, Roddy Gale, Felix Okpara, Evan Mahaffey, and then potentially a second year, Devin Royal, Scotty Middleton, what does that look like? And if you see enough progress between now and the end of the season to where you say, yeah, they took lumps these last 2 years, but boy, it looks like next year with those guys as juniors, that they could have something. And if you go out and get 2 really good pieces in the portal, what's the ceiling look like? Those are the questions that they're going to have to answer. And that's the stuff that we're not going to know until they play these next 7 Big Ten games and then see what seed they get in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, they've got some real opportunities this week. I don't think anybody expects them to go to Wisconsin tonight or go to host Purdue this weekend and win. But if they do, it changes the conversation, I think, pretty significantly. So we've got to see how these games play out. It certainly has not gone the way people thought it would or hoped that it would, but they've still got opportunities there to write a different script.
Adam Jardy, Columbus Dispatch, covers the Ohio State Buckeyes on the hardwood, of course. Adam, as we wrap this up, for one, I feel better about the future of, again, nothing's set in stone, and you're not saying one way or another, but from your perspective, it sounds like nothing's been set in stone. The decision on Holtmann has not been made outside of the court of public perception and opinion, of course, obviously. So that's good to know. But let's just, have you even, and I, following your work, have you put anything out? Are there any, who do you think would even be potential names that could come in to coach this team if Holtmann's not the guy in 2024-25?
I kind of find that to be, I don't find that to be my work. Sure, I could brainstorm you a list of names, but I find that not to be very responsible journalism to be speculating about who could replace someone who very well could, retain his job. I don't have much interest in speculating on things like that. I don't think that's very fair. So politely decline to speculate there.
Fair enough. I'll do the speculating on another segment. How about that? That's fair enough. But, all right, good stuff. Adam Jardy, the Columbus Dispatch, covers the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State, Wisconsin coming up tonight. Obviously, a tough test right there. Wisconsin, one of the few ranked Big Ten teams as we sit here in the middle of February. Big matchup and a big opportunity for Ohio State. They snapped that losing streak, taking some momentum into this matchup tonight. But as you said, Adam, Wisconsin, it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be tough to expect them to go in there and do that, but that would definitely get people's attention if they could turn it around with a win tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about a Wisconsin team that has lost 4 straight, and suddenly looks like it's taken on some water a little bit, maybe coming back to earth a little. I still think this is a really talented Wisconsin team that should win this game tonight. But I did like the way Ohio State beat Maryland on Saturday, and not just they beat a team that's in the middle of the pack of the Big Ten and has had a rough year, but so many of the things that have held the Buckeyes back during this slide here, where they lost 8 of 9, was they just didn't make enough winning plays. Maybe they weren't in the best situations at all times, and they ran into things like that. But they didn't look like they were in the right place to just go make a play, win a game. And they had a different mindset, a different attitude in that game. And I'm very interested to see if they can carry that forward now and take that to Wisconsin, because that could serve them well on the road.
All right, well, good stuff. Adam Jardy, Columbus Dispatch. Last thing on the way out, I mean, the NCAA tournament, there's still hope there, you think? Tonight, obviously, a lot riding on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's very slight hope. I mean, you've got to win games to get there, and this team, hasn't shown that it can win the kind of games consistently that it needs to win in order to make it. But, you do have, this is a quad 1 game tonight. You got a quad 1 game against Purdue this weekend. You'll go to Michigan State. That'll be quad 1. At Minnesota might be a quad 1 game. There are still opportunities there that you could, if you said, can you paint me a scenario where this team makes the tournament? Sure, I could do that for you. They got to win a few more games before I believe that's a possibility. But the opportunities are still there, believe it or not.
Give him a follow on X, Twitter, whatever you call it, at Adam Jardy. Again, covers your Ohio State Buckeyes for the Columbus Dispatch. Adam, we appreciate your time and any time you give us. So thank you, and we'll talk soon.
All right, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, good stuff. Again, Adam Jardy, Columbus Dispatch, Ohio State, Wisconsin, coming up later on tonight. A lot interesting. Kevin and I have just been under the assumption that this is it for Chris Holtmann, but it doesn't sound like that might be the case. Obviously, this team needs to continue to fight and continue to swing and continue to show effort. As long as there's no evidence of quitting on Chris Holtmann, there could be a chance that he is back next season as the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes on the hardwood. Interesting. We'll kind of build off of that a bit when we come back. Again, Dayton in action tonight as well. As we talked about, they got Duquesne. That's a 7:00 tip-off at the arena. Flyers back at home. Wright State off this week until Saturday. They have a 1 p.m. tip-off against Robert Morris for their homecoming game. So there's a lot going on the hardwood as the month of February is starting to speed up a bit as far as that's concerned. It's the Kinner and Kev Show here on a Tuesday. We'll be right back.
Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
Well, the forecast, increasing clouds and 29 tonight. Slight chance of snow, partly sunny, 47 Wednesday. Chance of rain, breezy, 52 Thursday. I'm Rick Schrepp for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Hungry for a great time? Maybe some great food? Then come on down to your neighborhood Submarine House. Try our oven-toasted deli subs, our mouth-watering salads, pizzas, appetizers, and more. And wash them down with a unique selection of craft beers while watching the big game on our big screens. With locations around Dayton, in Columbus, and our newest sports bar in Kettering, you're never far from a Submarine House. Subs, sports, spirits, Submarine House.
Need a U.S. passport? We can help. Hi, this is Mike Foley, your Montgomery County Clerk of Courts. Visit one of our convenient auto title locations in Huber Heights, Clayton, downtown, Moraine, and Centerville. Make us your first destination before you travel abroad. No appointments ever needed. We do passports.com for more info.
Sick and tired of achy joints? Dread the idea of surgery? You need to call QC Kinetics today. Hey, it's Keith Byers. Listen, the state of healthcare is always changing. The old ideals like steroids and surgery are no longer your only options. Regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics is transforming lives with innovative, non-surgical, drug-free treatments that deliver lasting results. Knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain from arthritis or injury? Don't let this pain keep you from living your best life. QC Kinetics advanced state-of-the-art treatments harness and direct your body's natural ability to restore and repair damaged joint tissue. This is a revolutionary approach that can get you long-term relief with no downtime. Make 2024 the year you reclaim your mobility, reclaim your independence, walk and run and play and live without the danger and trauma of surgery. And without harmful drugs, call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation. 937-936-0325. 937-936-0325.
I'm Terry Krupp of Laird's Tax and Accounting, serving this area's tax and accounting needs for over 80 years. Tax season is here. We invite you to discover how we can make your tax filing experience easier. Our professional staff assures your return is accurate with maximum use of legitimate deductions. Since our founding, we have been trusted because of our knowledge of the tax code and for standing behind your return if the IRS calls. Contact us at 937-325-6571. Information at lairdstax.com.
Hey everybody, it's Chris Thompson with Drive One Car and Truck. Why should you buy your next vehicle from Drive One? It's simple, really. We work extremely hard to make sure that every vehicle we sell meets our standards for service and quality before we put it on the lot. We also make sure that we take care of our customers not only during the sale, but after the sale. You're not forgotten. You're not left alone. We want to ensure that you have a great experience at Drive One. So the next time you're looking for a vehicle, come check us out at driveonecarandtruck.com, on Facebook, or stop into either of our 2 locations in Springfield and drive one home today.
When I got the news, I was shocked.
I was scared. I was angry.
When I heard it could be treated with the right care, I was relieved.
I was happy. I was given a second chance.
Urology Specialists of Ohio offers men peace of mind. 5 physicians and 5 locations. Now accepting new patients. Make an appointment with a physician that cares about your health and prevention. Urology Specialists of Ohio, Beaver Creek, Springfield, Urbana, Xenia, and London. Online at urologyspecialistsofohio.com.
Strong enough for a Mastiff, gentle enough for a Chihuahua. Invisible Fence brand is more than a fence with hands-on training and exclusive solutions to give your pet more room to run. Learn more at invisiblefence.com.
Really young, and they haven't been able to coach.
The people up top and with new athletic.
Dad.
I love you too, son.
The exchange you just heard didn't actually.
Truck, boat, lawnmower, leaf blower, weed trimmer, ATV, motorcycle, or anything else with an engine,
When you store, start with stable.
By now, you should know Audio Etc. has all the same sales and deals on TVs and projectors as everyone else. But did you know we also have some of the world's best hi-fi? Hi, this is Kirby from Audio Etc. And we do have some of the best home theater high-fidelity gear on the planet. Not only do we have your favorite brands like Clip speakers and SVS subwoofers, but audiophile greats from Bowers & Wilkins, Kef, NAD, Marantz, Cambridge, Mark Levinson, and plenty of vinyl and tube gear. Plus exotics you only see in the magazines. Stop by today and visit Audio Etc.'s crazy cool showroom and see and audition the best audio and video it has to offer. While you're in, check out our huge selection of pre-owned vintage gear. A great way to afford great gear otherwise out of reach, or revisit old classics. Audio Etc. Sound advice you can trust. Audio Etc. 551 Congress Park Drive at the corner of Paragon in Centerville, or call 434-9770.
Audio Etc. Crazy cool showroom.
All right, and we are back. Good stuff there from Adam Jardy with the Columbus Dispatch. Gave us some time. Of course, Ohio State, their struggles on the hardwood continuing to pile up, even though they are coming off of a good win against Maryland. So that is something to keep in mind. That doesn't really accomplish much as far as improving the Buckeyes' NCAA tournament chances. In fact, I don't believe that they're going to be dancing the NIT. I don't see that being an option for Ohio State. I mean, it's Ohio State. I don't see them. They've won the NIT, and obviously back when I think I was in high school, in 2008 or 9. It's right around the time Dayton had won it as well. But yeah, it wasn't too long ago when Thad Matta, that was the William Buford and John Diebler and Aaron Kraft and Costa Koufis, and it was that group. So, nonetheless, but. Ohio State at Wisconsin tonight. Wisconsin's lost quite a few in a row. They're number 20, which is weird. I thought if you lose, you move up in the rankings, but I don't know. Not when you lose 4 in a row, I guess. But the thing that's interesting, so the reason I like what Adam Jardy had a lot of interesting things to say about the future of Chris Holtmann. I tried to get him to throw out some potential names, but he wasn't willing to go down that route. I understand. Assuming that Chris Holtmann's gone after this season for not living up to, I mean, we felt like last year that this year would be him coaching for his job, and he still potentially is. It doesn't sound like it's a done deal that he will be out of here by the end of the season. If whatever, like I don't think they're going to make the NCAA tournament, but if they show some fight down the stretch, they still recruit at a high level. And technically, you're punishing Chris Holtmann for sticking to a plan that the athletic director agreed to, the athletic director that's on his way out. So if you are the new athletic director in Bjork and you sit down with Holtmann and say, okay, we're going to run it back, but we're not going to stick to the plan that you were sticking to with Gene Smith. And that plan was to stay young. That we weren't going to go the approach of just buying a team every year in the portal. And I understand that and respect that to a certain extent. Okay, I get it to a certain extent. But what I don't like is we would be hypocrites if we heard that approach and didn't have a problem with it, because we have a problem with it when Dabo Swinney says in football, we're not doing it that way. We want guys that want to be here. We want guys that want to play here. And I respect the coaches that have that mindset. And if you can win that way, then great. There are coaches I know in college basketball that's their approach, who make it very well known to recruits, you're going to come here, and if you leave, you're allowed to leave. We can't make you stay here, but we want you to know if you're coming here to use us to springboard somewhere, like we don't want you. We don't care if you're talented. If, we are trying to build out a team 2, 3, 4 years out, and it's tough to do when you got guys coming in out. Then there's other coaches. I know Jared Calhoun is one over at Youngstown State. I think all but 2 guys on their current roster right now were on the roster last year. Or all but 2 guys were playing somewhere else last year. This is a whole completely new, different team from last year. Okay. And the thing that's interesting about that, Shaw, you wrote whoops in there. I'm confused as far as what you're whoopsing about, but nonetheless. So the thing that's interesting about that is the different approaches that coaches have to building a roster. If you continue to go to the portal and piecemeal a team together and you continue just to put it together, a makeshift team through the portal, fine, you better win. If you are saying, I don't want to build through the portal, I want to recruit guys and develop guys and be old school with it, that's cool, but you got to win. And I think that that's what Chris Holtmann was in the midst of trying to say, hey, as college basketball is shifting, college athletics as a whole, it's shifting. That's great. Dayton, they prime example. They're all about the portal. They get guys from USC, they get guys from Florida, they get guys from Robert Morris. They're all about the transfer portal. And that's fine because guess what? It's working this year. It didn't work last year, but it's working this year. Cool. But you have to have a base. You have to have guys that you've recruited and developed. And Dayton, to be fair, they have a good balance of that. And most teams do. But Ohio State, it just seems like they are all about, okay, we're going to go and we're going to recruit and we are going to develop and we're going to live and die by the recruiting sword. That's great, but that's not how the good teams in college basketball are doing it right now. You cannot get lapped. You cannot get passed by. I talked about the Steelers earlier. They take pride in the Steeler way. They take pride in the selfish approach of the coach of, I want to make sure that I never have a losing season ever, even at the expense of having to sacrifice some losing seasons to improve the landscape, to make sure that we're good financially and good player-wise, right? Like, no, it's all about the winning. It's at the expense of the team, in my opinion. And if you want to do this way, okay, we're going to recruit at such a high level and develop, that's fine, but that has to lead to wins. And if not, you got to shake it up because the teams that have the approach that you disagree with, if those teams are lapping you consistently, not once or twice, but consistently, then you got to change it up a bit, in my opinion. So Chris Holtmann doing it this way at the sign-off of Gene Smith, that's super. That's fantastic. That's great. But I hope Bjork looks at Chris Holtmann and says, we're going to run it back with you. We're going to run it back with you, but you're going to be aggressive. This is why, Ryan Day was on not the hot seat. He was on the court of, fan perception hot seat, of course. People wanted him gone. But right now, there's a different buzz and energy. The reason I hope that Adam Jardy is correct about the future of Chris Holtmann is because Chris Holtmann never got a chance to get the treatment that Ryan Day did. And what I mean by that is, when you look at, from an NIL standpoint, when you look at the collectives, that was the word I was trying to stall and buy time to come up with. My apologies. When you look at the collectives, how did Ohio State go from, oh man, like we're weak here, we don't have this here, man, we don't have a lot of this, to now they retained a whole roster? They go and get the number one player in the portal. They go get the number one running back in the portal. They go get another quarterback. They just loaded up all of a sudden because a switch was flipped. Fine, we're going all in. Ohio State didn't want to go the NIL route. Like they were going to, incorporate NIL into the equation, but they weren't going to live and die by the NIL. Well, they started dying by that approach. And guess what? They panicked and they said, fine, what do you want? Name your price. Let's do it. And now look, they're national championship favorites heading into next year. Now they have to live up to that, obviously, but give Chris Holtmann the same opportunity. Let Chris Holtmann go buy a roster. Now, people could have a negative connotation of that all they want, but that's college athletics. Some schools have it. Some schools don't have the funds and resources to do it. Fine. You don't have the resources. You got to do it a different way. But when you have the resources like Ohio State does, you can't tell Chris Holtmann, hey, we want you to recruit and develop. And then when you have the youngest team in the Big Ten for back-to-back seasons, then question, well, how come you're not competing with the experienced portal-built teams? Well, you can't have it both ways. I've said the same thing in baseball about analytics with David Bell. When David Bell was hired, Schlemmer and I were doing the show. We had David Bell on the show. David Bell told both of us, I'm not going to manage based on analytics alone. I have a feel and gut for the game, and that's how I'm going to manage it. He doesn't manage that way. So me and Schlemmer always criticized him based on him going back on what he told us because, hey, you said you weren't going to live and die by the analytics. That's what he does. That's what he does because that's what the front office forced him to do. The front office has said, hey, we invest millions into these analytics and you are going to use them to manage baseball games. And you got to do what your boss says. So David Bell said, okay. So where I've defended David Bell is this. I don't like living and dying by the manual approach where, okay, when this happens, do this. When this happens, do that. Push this button when this happens. That's robotic, and I don't like that about baseball. But if the front office is making you, and they're making you live and die by that, and you're losing games because of it, how can the front office fire you for that? Well, that's my approach with the NIL approach with Ohio State. You're the youngest team in the Big Ten for back-to-back years because you won't allow them to go out and flourish in the portal. So I expect the same aggressive offseason that we just experienced with Ohio State football. I'm expecting the same type of thing for basketball. We just had Adam Jardy on with the Columbus Dispatch. He had this to say about how aggressive he expects Ohio State to be this upcoming offseason on the hardwood when it comes to NIL and the portal.
Well, if you're asking like what I think the NIL allotment will look like and what sort of approach they could have in the offseason as far as assessing the roster and building it, my understanding is that what you saw with football this offseason is the plan for basketball. So it's not going to be a case of, Ohio State can't get this player or that player because of an NIL situation. Like they have the funds at the ready to bolster this roster however they feel it's needed. And so really the question comes down to, in these last 7 Big Ten games plus whatever postseason you end up getting, how much progress can you show?
So there's a lot to this equation here. The future of Chris Holtmann, the nail in the coffin of his career at Ohio State has not been pushed in yet, right? I think that he has a chance. I don't think they're going to make the NCAA tournament. The postseason's a pipe dream at this point, as we just talked about, of course, with Adam Jardy, the Columbus Dispatch. However, we are at a point now where if they can not win outs, but be competitive to close out, Chris Holtmann can head into the offseason feeling down about himself and down about the program the same way Ryan Day went into the offseason feeling down about himself and down about the program. But look, 1 month of being aggressive in the portal and aggressive with NIL, Ryan Day is heading into next season. He's more confident heading into next season than the team that just won the national championship, than the team that's beat Ohio State 3 straight years. Ryan Day is walking around with confidence and walking around with his head held high because he feels good about the overall team effort, from the athletics department to the collectives to the team to the coaching staff to everything. That's what Chris Holtmann deserves too. So I hope Chris Holtmann's not done after this year. I've told you many, many times I'm a big Chris Holtmann guy. I'm not a fan of them firing him because they didn't give him the same aggressive treatment to build his roster the way they gave Ryan Day. So I would hope that we get to see Chris Holtmann come back as far as that's concerned. So it'll be interesting. It'll be fascinating. But good stuff from Adam Jardy. If you missed that, we'll have it coming up later. Adam Selzner on Facebook. Make sure people can read this. We're live on the Justin Kinder Show Facebook page. I agree that Adam Selzner says this. I agree that Holtmann is doing it the way he was told, but you can't look past his overall postseason tournament record and dreadful January-February record. Completely get that. But as Adam just said, what's the line between excuses and reasons? What's the line? Because the guy recruits his ass off. They beat all the good teams in the non-con, which I know that's not what you're hired necessarily to do. You're expected to do that. Again, Chris Holtmann's resume is not perfect, but either was Ryan Day's, and they bring him back, and look, they went all in, and now they have the best roster, second best roster if you're a Georgia fan heading into next season. So there's that. There was obviously that horrible loss in the COVID 2020 tournament, where they lost to Oral Roberts or whatever, inexcusable. That's really when things started kind of really getting away from him. Snowball, I'm with you, Adam. I'm not saying he's perfect. But, again, the same reasons that they're struggling throughout his run here is because, again, young teams in March. Why do you think let me kill this music here because I'm not yelling at you, Adam, even though I'm getting loud. I apologize. Think of it like this. So a lot of the times, like, the Cinderella teams, the upsets in March, we're seeing way more of those than we've ever seen before. We're not just seeing upsets in the first and second rounds anymore. We're seeing mid-major teams make it all the way to the Final Four. Look at Florida Atlantic, right? Like, look at these teams over the years that have gone every year now. It's not just that these teams are getting a big storied win in the first round. Like, in the recent memory, we've seen 16 for the first time ever. In the last couple of years, we watched a 16 seed do it, right? I mean, last year, Wright State, a 16 seed, was within 10 points heading into the final 5 minutes of that game against Arizona. I didn't expect Wright State to come away with a win. I expected them to be down by 40. But they were within 10 heading into the final stretch of that ball game. Like, that doesn't happen. So that was the tournament game from 2 years ago. Sorry, 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament. But I bring this up because the reason mid-majors have closed the gap on some of these is because the age and the experience. So if Ohio State has the youngest team in the Big Ten the last 2 years, and Ohio State is having ups and downs, why do you think that is? Because the age and the experience. It's not excuses. That's the reason. The reason that upsets are happening more across the board is because of the portal. Mid-major teams are older than what they used to be. Mid-major teams are more experienced and all that type of thing. It's more balanced. Big Ten teams, the Power 5 teams, are younger now. The Big Ten used to build like that. You might lose a player or two, but you still had the core. All these Power 5 teams, they no longer have the core anymore consistently because everyone's just, it's the wild, wild west, right? That's where I am semi-defending Chris Holtmann from that perspective. Gene Smith, or Gordon Gross on Facebook says, Gene Smith was a big reason why their NIL was lacking. He didn't believe in paying college players. I feel like these collectives have been sitting on this money for quite some time, but Gene was getting in the way of it getting where it needed to go because he didn't want it to turn into the pay-for-play model, even though vocally he had spoken out about being for it, but in a controlled environment, of course. But while he was doing that, Ohio State was falling behind. There's a reason that Clemson has just kind of fallen off. You think that Dabo Swinney just forgot how to coach football? You think that Clemson just it was one hot recruiting class? Dabo Swinney went to multiple national championships with multiple recruiting classes. The guy knows how to coach. He knows how to recruit. He knows how to develop. You can't recruit, coach, and develop in today's college athletics without the transfer portal and without heavy investing into NIL. You just can't. Ohio State we thought was untouchable. I thought they were untouchable. They became very touchable because they weren't investing into the changes in college athletics, and it's like they flipped that switch and look what happened. They fixed it overnight. They need to do the same thing for basketball. Gene Smith being out, I love what Gene Smith did over the years. The landscape changed. He wouldn't change. That's why they had to. I'm glad that they're moving on. Bjork coming in. His strengths fit where Ohio State's weaknesses were. That's why football got fixed really quickly, and I think that it deserves to be said the same thing about the basketball side. Keith Tolliver said, I said the same argument about Michigan earlier this year and got crushed for this take. What was the take, Keith? Can you send it back real quick? What? I'm sure I crushed you because I always crush everyone, right? Because if people don't agree with me, I just yell and scream like a child. But no, Keith, what take did I crush you for? Just I'm curious what it was. As far as that's concerned, but nonetheless. All right, it's the Kenner and Kev show here on Dayton's ESPN Radio. Keith, send that in. We'll step away for a few moments, and we'll pick up with this on the other side. Phone line's open, 518-1410. It's a lot of time on Ohio State basketball today, but it's Ohio State basketball is the base of this conversation, but there's more to it than just that. This is a message across all of college athletics. Like, I feel like Ohio State is a great example of why the portal and why NIL is so needed. Some people think, Ohio State, they don't need to rely on the portal and NIL as much because it's Ohio State. Well, look at what happened the last couple of years. And look what happened in one offseason, how that's totally changed the trajectory of the offseason, of the future. 518-1410. We'll be right back.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Have you ever told a friend?
Oh, I'm fine.
When you really felt?
Just so overwhelmed.
Or sent a text?
Can't sleep. Are you awake?
When you couldn't find the words to say?
I'm scared to be alone with my thoughts right now.
Then this is your sign to reach out to the 988 Lifeline for 24/7. Free confidential support. You don't have to hide how you feel. Text, call, or chat anytime.
Have you heard? Bath Creations has moved to their new location and showroom at 8741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton. This gives you even more opportunity to see the incredible amenities and craftsmanship Bath Creation offers. With Bath Creations, you get a beautiful, modern bathroom that is safe, comfortable, and affordable. Attention first responders, veterans, and active military. Save an additional $500 off your purchase. Visit at 8741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton or online at mybathcreations.com and get a new bath today.
Veterans, were you exposed to harmful burn pit smoke while serving overseas? The Department of Veterans Affairs has recognized and is providing benefits to veterans who suffer with asthma, rhinitis, and sinusitis as a result of burn pit exposure. If you served in the Southwest Asia Theater of Operations or Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Syria, or Djibouti, and suffer from any respiratory illnesses that you believe is a result of exposure to burn pits, contact the Montgomery County Veterans Service Commission at 937-225-4801.
Jeeps, trucks, side-by-sides, and more. Don't miss the 10th Annual Dayton Off-Road Expo, February 24th, 9 to 6 p.m., February 25th, 10 to 4 p.m., at the Roberts Center in Wilmington, Ohio. Show rigs, off-road vendors, and more. Admission is only $10 per adult. Kids 12 and under are free. Presented by Muddy Buddies Jeep Wrangler Club and sponsored by Wilmington Auto Center. Don't miss the Dayton Off-Road Expo, your ultimate destination for all things off-road.
Hey, let me tell you about the advantages of driving with my friends at Cordell Transportation. First of all, for the new year, they're offering brand new equipment to drive. They purchased new equipment, and not a lot of people could say that, but they've got it, and they're ready to roll with you. Cordell Transportation is offering an incredible $5,000 sign-on bonus paid over 18 months. If you're an experienced Class A CDL driver looking for excellent benefits, home daily dedicated lanes, no-touch freights, then apply today online at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
The Flower Man here with our annual Valentine's Day tradition. A dozen roses for $12.99. That's incredible. A dozen roses, only $12.99. So beautiful. I'm starting to tear up. A dozen roses for Valentine's, only $12.99. Go to flowermanflowers.com. That's flowermanflowers.com.
Strong enough for a Mastiff, gentle enough for a Chihuahua. Invisible Fence brand is more than a fence with hands-on training and exclusive solutions to give your pet more room to run. Learn more at invisiblefence.com.
Justin Kinner back with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM, 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Dayton in action tonight. They got Duquesne. We talked about Dayton a little bit ago. Talked about their interesting stretch of games coming up. Look, they moved up to number 16. They had a loss on the road against VCU. They were 18, and when the rankings came, the last time they lost, I think they were at 16 and dropped to 21. After their previous loss. So obviously losing the VCU, but the previous loss, that was the Richmond loss. Richmond's the top team in the A10, at least standings wise, right? Right? So number one team in the A10 standings wise. It was a battle of the top two at the time. Dayton loses by 5 and they dropped from 16 to 21. And then they lose against an unranked team in VCU, an average on a good day VCU team. And then what happens? They move up 2 spots. Now, Dayton moving up had more to do with all the teams that lost around them. Kentucky continuing to drown. Wisconsin has lost like 3 or 4 straight, so they're dropping. So the chaos around Dayton is propping them up at the same time. But Dayton's not playing dominant basketball right now. Let's just be clear. I mean, they're 3-2 in their last 5. It's not like they're just rolling through the one-bid league competition. So there's that. Sam Hayden, take that however you want. But I'm holding them to top 25 expectations. We talked about this on yesterday's show. I don't want to get into another rant. I'm just explaining my point of view. You guys say I'm hating. I'm just explaining how I'm, why I feel the way I do. So the thing that's interesting about this, so Dayton sitting at number 16, I remember a while back we talked about, okay, how good will Dayton be in the top 25 when the NCAA tournament gets here? The bottom line is it really doesn't matter. But there is kind of a correlation there between being in the top 25 and having that higher seed, of course. Right now, Joe Lenardi has them as a 4 seed as far as that's concerned. So, I think that they're going to hover in that 4 to 5 seed range, assuming that they continue winning. And they're going to finish. I mean, they're going to win more games than they lose moving forward. I don't deny that. But there's an interesting stretch of basketball coming up that we highlighted a little bit ago. Okay, they got Duquesne tonight. They're an 8.5-point favorite at home. They should take care of Duquesne. 8.5-point favorite. If Kentucky's playing Duquesne, they'd be a double digit. Dayton should beat them by double digits tonight. There's no excuse. 8.5-point favorite. Dayton should blow out Duquesne. They should blow out Fordham. Duquesne and Fordham. If you are the number 16 team in the country, Duquesne and Fordham have no business even feeling like they have a shot heading in to the under 12 media timeout in the second half. This game should be done by the under 12 media timeout in the second half. No questions, no excuses, no reasons, no excuse, no reasons. Just flat out have this game done by the under 12 timeout in the second half. Simple as that. 16th best team in the country going up against Duquesne, going up against Fordham, going up against George Mason, going up against Davidson, who's not very good. I mean, let's be real. But the final 3 games are fascinating to me. For this reason right here. Loyola 9-2 in A10, Dayton 9-2 in A10 play. Those two are going to be neck and neck the whole way. Okay, I think Richmond has a good chance, unless Richmond kind of stubs their toe a few times. Richmond most likely has a good chance to win this A10. But as we sit here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games remaining. Dayton 5-2 is a realistic expectation. Technically, based on them being a top 25 team, they should technically go 7-0 to close out. 5-2. The VCU game interests me at UD Arena. Okay, that interests me. Loyola definitely interests me because they have to play there. All right, Dayton played Loyola last year at the arena. They got to go play at Loyola now. And that's a 9 o'clock tip. It's on a Friday night. It's on ESPN. That's on March 1st. So we got some time before we get to that game. All right, UD still has to get past Davidson. They need to get past Duquesne, Fordham, George Mason, Davidson. But look at that final 3-game stretch. You're at Loyola. That's going to be an emotionally charged environment, right? Dayton's used to playing in that type of environment, no doubt. But then you're going to have to go play St. Louis, who's the second to worst team in the conference. You're going to come off that emotionally charged game on the road at Loyola and then follow it up 4 days later at St. Louis, the second worst team in the league. And they may have a good environment there because they hate Dayton. And that, they're going to want to pack the house. They would love to kind of, play a spoiler role and knock off Dayton one more rung if they can, kind of knock them off a higher seed line, whatever. But that's a trap game to me, because you got that return game with VCU on your home floor in the final game of the regular season. St. Louis is the ultimate trap game to close out. They don't lose anything technically with the loss against St. Louis or VCU or Loyola or anything like that. Their tournament chances don't reside on a win and any of those. I completely get that. But going from talking about this team potentially being a 3 seed to now hovering at the 4 to 5 to continue to drop down because you continuously keep picking up losses through a bad conference, that could be a problem. That could be problematic. But they should win the next 4 very handily. It should not be close against Duquesne, Fordham, George Mason, or Davidson. Not even close, especially because 3 of the next 4 are at home. 3 of the next 4 are at home. George Mason on the road, of course. But yeah, 2 of the final 3 on the road at Loyola, top team, one of the top teams in the league. St. Louis, second to worst. And then that big-time regular season finale against VCU. Depending on what happens with Richmond, that game against VCU, Dayton could be trying to clinch the regular season title if they, depending on how everything else shakes out over the next 7 games or so. So we had Adam Jardy on. And so again, Dayton and Duquesne, 7 o'clock to tip off tonight. That's on Spectrum News 1 for you to be able to watch that, by the way, just throwing that out there. Okay. Adam Jardy covers the Buckeyes Columbus Dispatch. I don't really want to talk Ohio State necessarily, but it's just the approach. And we had some interesting comments come in as far as that's concerned. So Adam Seltzer a little bit ago talking about Ohio State says UK has one of the youngest rosters and has for years, and they consistently make the NCAA tournament. Adam, Kentucky is a program that's different than Ohio State basketball. Kentucky basketball, they have the expectations to go win championships, Elite Eights, Final Four. So you could say Ohio State has that too, but that technically is not the case. And also, when I talk about Ohio State going and recruiting the high school level and having to develop, they get really good, four-star guys, but like Kentucky's getting your one and dones. Kentucky's getting your NBA guys. Ohio State's not. Ohio State and Kentucky basketball technically aren't on the same playing field either, technically. Kentucky, and using Kentucky, saying that they regularly get to the NCAA tournament, technically Ohio State regularly gets to the NCAA tournament. Since Chris Holtmann took over, okay, this will only be the second time they haven't made the NCAA tournament since Chris Holtmann's been there. Like, what do you mean? They've made it since he got there. He took over for Thad Matta. They went to the tournament every year. They were losing in the NCAA tournament. Okay, that 2020 year when they had Wesson and those guys, that was actually a really good team. The NCAA tournament just didn't happen. Then they were really good in 21. They made the tournament, lost to Oral Roberts, and then 22 and 23. They didn't make it last year, and they're most likely not going to make it this year. So I see what you're saying, but it's not like Ohio State hasn't sniffed the NCAA tournament. They just haven't sniffed success in the NCAA tournament. So Kentucky saying that they're one of the youngest rosters, and for years they've consistently made the NCAA tournament. So is Ohio State. So I get what you're saying, but nonetheless. So Keith Tolliver said, I said the same argument about Michigan earlier this year and got crushed for it. I asked him what he was referring to. He said, Michigan hoops being down. It's a team. It's a young team that they lost Hunter, obviously. Michigan usually leading at half and falters in the second half, sign of a young team and some bad coaching. I think bad coaching they're different than Ohio State. And this, I'm putting our Ohio State, Michigan back and forth, Keith, to the side. I liked Juwan Howard. I was a big fan of him taking over the program. I love that they had instant success right away. They were killing it out on the recruiting trail. But for one, the guy's a psychopath. 2, he's unhinged. 3, he's not coaching guys up. And to lose, I mean, you're Michigan basketball. This team is a regular in the NCAA tournament, a regular contender in the Big Ten. They've been to multiple Final Fours in the last decade. Like, this is a respectable program. You don't lose a guy like Dickerson. You don't lose a guy like that to Kansas. Kansas is a better basketball program than Michigan, but it wasn't head and tails of, but it wasn't miles ahead of Michigan that it made sense. That made no sense to me. That is not a product of being young. That's a product of a head coach that has no control over what's going on at Michigan. And that's coming from someone who really likes Juwan Howard. I've really been a fan of Michigan basketball over the last 10 plus years just because of how hard that they play. They're very likable. I like their old head coach too. Like, yeah. Juwan Howard's the biggest problem. I don't think Chris Holtman's the biggest problem in Columbus that many people want to say. I think Juwan Howard's the biggest problem in Michigan. And he's lived like the Fab Five thing. He's kind of lived off of that. People forgive him for that, but like they're a train wreck right now. And the NIL thing too. I ripped Michigan football for that approach because I remember that there was a lot of reports coming out of Michigan not really wanting to be, dive into the deep end with NIL. And I was criticizing Ohio State at that time and Michigan. Of course, Michigan ends up being a very experienced team that goes on to win that championship this year. But they gotta get it going too. Because Michigan fans, a lot of you, not you, Keith, necessarily, but a lot of Michigan fans are going to try to discredit Ohio State's success and say, oh, yeah, well, they're just trying to buy themselves out of problems. No, that's just called how it works. Like, I get like baseball, it's going to be similar to baseball where there's no salary cap on anything. It's just the teams with money will have the better chance than the teams that don't. And the teams that don't have the money, they have to be better from a development standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, from all that, right? Like if you use baseball, the Reds, every year we complain because the Reds didn't spend money. Well, the Reds weren't just going to magically spend money like at the level of which the Yankees and the Dodgers and those other teams do. So what the Reds had to do was hit the reset button and say, okay, we can't be the Yankees and Dodgers from a financial standpoint, but we can out Yankees and out Dodgers them from a developmental standpoint. And to the Reds' credit, they flipped that switch in 2019. They overhauled everything. They changed the approach, as far as how they hired their managers in the AAA in the farm system in general. They said, now we expect to win in the minor leagues. Like we had a great meeting with the Reds about a month ago at the luncheon when Karen Forgas, on the business side, basically just shared they completely shifted everything. It used to just be about making sure we're developing these players so that when they're called up, they have the skill set to play. But they didn't have this. They didn't have the mindset to be a winner. When they'd come up, they didn't care about the result of a game. They just cared about how they did individually. Now these players coming up through the Red system, they care about how they perform under the umbrella of helping the team win. And I think that's massive, and we've seen that. So the Reds now, like, we can't outspend you, but we're going to outdevelop you. So if you're not going to embrace NIL in the college level, you better outdevelop and out-recruit teams. And unfortunately, Michigan doesn't recruit well either from a football perspective. I know this is basketball, but yeah. Keith also responded and saying, I definitely feel his coaching has taken a step back this year. No doubt. OSU, or Keith also says, Ohio State's just playing the game, in my opinion. Nothing wrong with it. I mean, a head coach at a Power 5 quit to be the OC. That's huge. And as a UM fan, I can't be mad. I will talk crap because, well, it's the rival. Yeah, exactly, Keith. Exactly. And that's how it should be as far as that's concerned. But that conversation with Jardy was wild. We'll have that coming up for you again in the next hour. But I appreciate Adam Jardy giving us some time. Good stuff there. Appreciate him giving us a little window there. Nonetheless, he wouldn't bite on my question about if Chris Holtman's out, who does he see being in the mix for that? But really, anyone that puts out a list of names for the Ohio State job, if Chris Holtman leaves, nobody knows because everything's so buttoned up over there. There's no way that there's a list of names that have been released to anyone because they don't even know what the future of Holtman is at this point. He is coaching for his future in Columbus over the next 7-8 games that are remaining in the regular season. And one of those games is tonight, 9:00 to tip off. Ohio State at number 20, Wisconsin. Ohio State coming off that win against Maryland. Wisconsin's lost quite a few in a row, but again, it's a quad one game. Ohio State, their tournament chances are very, very slim, but a win tonight can keep that door cracked open just a little bit longer. Maybe they build off that momentum. Back-to-back years being the youngest team in the Big Ten. Not an excuse, but it is a reason. There's a difference between excuses and reasons. And we can't ignore the fact that the youngest team in the Big Ten is Ohio State. And that's why we see so many ebbs and flows throughout the season. So, nonetheless. All right, it's Ken and Kev's show here on Dayton's ESPN Radio. Travis Trice, big fan of his, by the way. Assistant coach at Wright State. Great high school basketball coach for both boys and girls basketball when he was coaching in the high school level. He's as locked in the local high school basketball scene and the Ohio basketball scene, the high school basketball scene across the map. Big fan of Travis Trice. I was a huge fan when it was announced that he was going to be joining the staff at Wright State for Coach Nagy. And he was on the coaches show last night, and I was blown away. Sitting back, just listening to him, share stories about his days, playing. He played college basketball. He talked about when played at Butler in Indiana. Bob Knight's Indiana team came in and was a part of that Butler team that upset Indiana. Great stuff. I could have sat back and listened to him talk for hours. Big fan of Travis Trice. We had him on the coaches show last night, and we'll have that conversation coming up for you on the other side as we kick off the third hour. So there you go. Our conversation with Travis Trice, assistant coach for Wright State. That's coming up next. It's the Ken and Kev Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
It's easy to think all money managers are pretty much the same, but at Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
Different? How? You sell high commission investment products, right?
No, Fisher Investments doesn't sell any commission-based investment products.
Well, you must earn commissions on trades.
Nope, never at Fisher. We're a fiduciary, obligated to act in our client's best interest. It's the highest standard of care for a financial advisor.
How do you know what's in their best interest?
We get to know our clients and then tailor a portfolio based on their goals and needs.
But you probably sneak in some hidden and layered fees.
No, we have one transparent management fee, structured so we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, you really do look out for your clients.
That's because our top priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. It might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investments and securities involve the risk of loss.
Febreze. Fabric Talk. Hey, it's me, your couch. Today's my favorite day of the week. Febreze Fabric Spray Day. The occasional deep cleans are nice, but in between, I'm needing a refresh. Ooh, here she comes with the Febreze Fabric Spray. Oh yeah, spritz them armrests. Don't be shy. Nothing like a good spray down to get me smelling so fresh and clean. Don't forget my back. Nice. Febreze Fabric Spray. It's just that easy. Now we can both breathe happy. Febreze. La 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 la.
Timmy, everybody. Great job. Next up, we have Samantha.
10 times better performance can make a big difference. Castrol Edge Motor Oil gives your engine 10 times better high-temperature performance. Castrol Edge, better oil for maximum performance. Now through March 4th, get 5 quarts of Castrol Edge or Edge High Mileage Full Synthetic and an oil filter for $36.99, only at AutoZone.
Claim based on Sequence 3H test versus API SP test limits.
Coming to you live from the Superbook Sports Studios in Kettering. You're listening to Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
All right, Justin Kinner back with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. If you missed it last night on the Wright State Basketball Coaches Show, it was awesome. We had Travis Trice come on up and hang out with us out at Modex for the Wright State Coaches Show. For those of you who do not know, Travis Trice, of course, has a lot of local ties. Dominant at the high school level, of course, for both boys and girls basketball. Knows the high school scene like the back of his hand, and that's why he's a great addition to the Wright State Raiders men's coaching staff, of course. So Chris Collins, longtime voice of the Raiders, had a great conversation with Coach Trice last night at the Wright State Basketball Coaches Show. Take a listen.
Everybody, welcome Travis Trice. I know he's been talking to everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Coach Nagy, going
around doing the tour, and
that's what I do. You know, that's what I do.
Coach, talk about the responsibility. Travis he came from high school. He hasn't coached at college. He was an outstanding college player. But what's he done for the Raider program?
Well, being able to have somebody from the Dayton area that knows everybody, not just Dayton. I mean, his boys obviously grew up, but he And, we were just saying off the air, I mean, I just can't imagine the words that he uses in a day versus the words that I use in a day, because every time I see him, he's either on the phone or, he's talking. And, of course, I tend to be very quiet. I could go an entire day without talking. And so our personalities are a lot different.
So, Travis, what's it been like for you, though, the transition?
No, it's been unbelievable. And, it's like I heard Coach mentioning earlier, that one of the things he feels like he's done a great job of is hiring people that are kind of opposite of him. And, it's amazing because we actually have a lot in common with us both having 5 children, and I've got a grandson. He's got grandchildren. So, we're two of the guys that can kind of talk about some things that happened a little longer than 20 years ago and have some things in common. But it's been a great ride for me. I enjoy the guys. I enjoy coming to work, every single day. And Coach has given us an environment that is really conducive to you getting a chance to grow, in your role amongst the staff. And it's just been a joy.
So what are some of the things, though, that you have learned? Because let's face it, girls, boys basketball, you win state championship, in both. You move on now to college, and you've talked about this many times and have told me, since you've been here, how great it is to be here to learn, from someone who's been so successful. Talk about some of the things that you've learned since you've been here on the staff.
Well, there's so many different ways to coach. Some teams play fast, some teams play slow. There's just different, ways to win. And for someone that's won like, Coach has, I was very eager to come in and just kind of, see how he's done the things that he's done. And it's pretty amazing, the confidence that he gives, in our players. People talk about, our offense. Obviously we've been tremendous offensively, this year, and he's a defensive-minded coach. But I also think the fact that he doesn't overwhelm our guys with, what he wants. He allows them to be who they are offensively. And that's hard for me. I was in high school. We pressed some. We ran offense. I gave guys freedom. It was kind of a mixed bag. We called it probably a lot more sets, and Coach gives the freedom to our guys, and to his benefit, it's really worked out well for our program.
Coach Nagy, you allowed not only Travis, but, Coach Sargent, Coach Beret, to actually handle, the scouting reports. Are these something that you just go ahead and let them handle it all on their own? Obviously, you make the final choice about what's going to go on.
Well, they do most of the work in terms of watching film. I'll spend this week watching probably a couple games of Robert Morris, but